Welcome to Justice. I'm Jeanine Pirro. Thanks for being with us. We're keeping an eye on Yokota Air Base in Tokyo, where the President of the United States is due to arrive and address U.S. troops there. We're going to bring that to you when it happens. Also tonight, Congress members Ron DeSantis and Brian Babin are here, as well as Sebastian Gorka and Jason Chaffetz. But first, my opening statement. They lied to us. They said there was nothing to worry about, that the sale of 20% of America's uranium to our enemy, Russia, wasn't really a problem. Nothing to look at here, folks. And after the sale, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission even assured Congress and us that Russia couldn't export any raw nuclear fuel from our shores. So what difference does this make that uranium would leave our shores? I'll tell you what difference it makes. For me, it's personal. You see, in 2012, I was diagnosed with cancer. I didn't talk about it. You didn't know about it. I just did my show every weekend. And in the end, as the chemotherapy treatments progressed, I was on air talking to you without my eyebrows, eyelashes, and wearing a wig. Like so many of us, I was diagnosed and found out I was sick thanks to the advances of nuclear medicine and the medical isotopes used to create it. Those medical isotopes are the key to identifying and treating disease. They are literally life-saving. I know. So why am I telling you this, and why now? Why? Because uranium is key to nuclear imaging. Last week in my open, I told you Russia wanted our uranium so badly that they started a criminal campaign to get ours. And so began the corruption and the bribery that underlay the Uranium One deal, the one where the Clintons walked away with millions and the Russians walked away with 20% of America's uranium. The informant who brought the bribery to the attention of the FBI in the criminal case prosecuted by Eric Holder's Justice Department and Rod Rosenstein's Maryland office was gagged, so he couldn't tell you what the Russians were doing. And the lie that the uranium wasn't leaving our shores? Reports from the Hill are that when inquiries were made whether our uranium was being shipped to our enemy, Russia, NRC Chairman Gregory Yasko, a former Harry Reid staffer, apparently well-versed in the swamp, said we never issued a license to the Russian firm and no uranium could be exported without it. But hang on, folks. The NRC approved the shipment of uranium from our mines to Canada through a third party. And later, the Obama administration itself allowed it to go to Europe. Rather than give an open license to the Russians, the NRC allowed a trucking firm to circumvent the license requirement and simply transport the uranium to Canada. And no one in Congress even noticed. You know, it all makes sense now. Obama dancing with the devil, so keen on making the Iran deal with our sworn enemy. That Iran deal allowing them to develop the capability to create Moly 99 in their country from uranium and sell it back to us. Moly 99, of course, is the medical ingredient that's used to diagnose heart disease and cancer in over 40 million Americans a year. It cannot be made without uranium. So here's the bottom line. We shouldn't export our weapons-grade uranium to other countries. And I'm not even talking about the criminality and money to the Clintons and their so-called charitable foundation that accompanied the sale of our uranium to Russia, so that other countries can then provide us with medical isotopes. We don't need to give billions of dollars to other countries so that they can develop their nuclear programs and then sell it to us at a profit. We don't need Russia, Iran, or anyone else in control of our medical testing or imaging. I, for one, don't want to give anyone but Americans the leverage over that. And I got news for you. There is a law called the American Medical Isotopes Production Act that requires that our government support the development in this country of Molly-99 for medical uses. It's time to use our uranium for the development of our medical imaging, for the creation of jobs in our country, to lower health care costs for our working Americans, and not to mention the nuclear security that goes along with it. We don't need to be vulnerable to Russia, Iran, or even North Korea. We don't need them to leverage us by turning off a supply, the development of which we paid for or assisted in the creation of. You know, it's bad enough for people like me who get that cancer diagnosis, who go through the treatment, not knowing what's going to happen at the other end. We shouldn't have to deal with the thought that our uranium, our taxpayer dollars, are being used to develop our medical isotopes, increase our dependency on foreign governments, especially governments that are committed to our destruction. The problem is there's no real production of Molly-99 in the United States. We need our own domestic production, and we need to stop sending weapons-grade uranium to our enemies. You, me, and 40 million other Americans for whom nuclear imaging provides the devastating information or the sweet, precious, life-saving relief shouldn't be held hostage to people who want to kill us. And that's my open. Tell me what you think on my Facebook page, Twitter, and Instagram, #Judge Jeanine. And joining me now with reaction to my opening statement and all the breaking news, Doctor of Dental Surgery and Texas Congressman Brian Babin and Florida Congressman Ron DeSantis. All right, guys, thank you both for being here. I'm going to start with Congressman Babin. All right, Congressman, why do we rely on other countries for the development of Molly-99?
Mainly because we have stopped manufacturing nuclear weapons because of an agreement we did back in the 80s with the Soviet Union. And so we are no longer creating weapons. And quite frankly, we're dependent upon a lot of nations around the world for our radioisotopes that we use. And these radioisotopes are extremely important for the manufacture of these various isotopes that are used in the practice of medicine and diagnosing and treating diseases such as cancer and saving lives. And as you said earlier, there are 40 million procedures a year done with nuclear medicine. And so it's very, very important that we not be dependent upon foreign nations, especially Russia, for these isotopes.
And Dr. Babin, Congressman Babin, if you could tell my viewers what would Molly-99, what is nuclear imaging? When they go for what kind of test, would this be relevant or would this be used?
Well, like I said, there are 40 million procedures a year, and many of them are specific for certain organs in the body, whether it's your heart, your thyroid, muscular diseases, or bones, and these isotopes many of them are man-made. In fact, all of them are man-made, and they're very specific for for their task at hand, and they save lives. I can't overemphasize that. They are so much better than the old traditional X-rays, our PET scans, our CT scans. I mean, there's so many of these different types of tests that have advanced the medical fields so much in saving American lives. So we can't be dependent upon other nations to give us these isotopes.
All right, and Congressman DeSantis, I'll go to you. Given the corruption case that is underlying that Uranium One deal, and, you know, the news that's been broken in the last few days about that deal, Why would there be an Iranian deal where $150 billion then goes to Iran, where we invest in them to be able to create the medical isotopes so we can then buy it back? So we're giving uranium or selling it to Russia. Obama administration approves it. And then we're dealing with Iran, giving them $150 billion so that we can then buy the isotopes from them.
And that violates a 2012 law that was actually enacted by Congress to try to address the problem of us having to import this, the uranium underlying these tests. And the Iran deal was never passed by Congress. It was never ratified as a treaty. It was basically Obama making an executive agreement, obviously front-loading hundreds of billions of dollars in benefits to a terror financing state. But he was doing that unilaterally, and you cannot violate existing law. Right. So that's a huge issue in and of itself. And then, oh, by the way, with the Clinton uranium deal, we were told, as you mentioned, Judge, in your open, oh, yeah, so Russia has 20%. They're not allowed to export it because they didn't have an exporting license. And while that is technically true, what we've now found out was that that uranium was sent outside the United States. They did it very underhandedly. There were a lot of indirect ways to do it, but that was exported.
Congressman, do we know, once that stuff was exported and they used trucking to get it to Canada, do we know where it went from Canada? And by the way, to my viewers, we're on the screen, we're waiting for the President and Air Force One to land, I believe, and that's why that screen is up. But Congressman DeSantis, do we know that?
Well, we definitely know that it went to Europe. We believe it went to Asia, and we're working on trying to figure out whether it did, in fact, end up in the hands of a rogue regime like Iran. We haven't been able to substantiate that yet, but we have some indications that may have happened. We're working on that. Hopefully be able to substantiate that soon, one way or another.
And in that regard, your committee, and we appreciate your coming back on justice, you've indicated that you're starting hearings on this whole thing. You've got some breaking news for us. That informant on that underlying criminal case that was in the Rod Rosenstein's office, Rosenstein,